Hello and welcome to Developing Opinions. I don't know if this is still a thing, but when I was growing up, there was a large anti-magic movement. But a common question often posed was why Narnia and The Lord of the Rings were okay. Don't they feature magic? At the heart of this question, though, is what is magic? When we talk about magic, we may be talking about 3 or more different things. And I think Lord of the Rings shows us all 3. The first definition is just a name for things we do not understand, yet inspires awe and wonder. The common analogy is bringing a flashlight to the ancient past. This is what the elvish magic is explained to be. There is nothing wrong with that, and this also aligns with current magic tricks. The second is related to the first. I'd say there is magic and it is something we cannot do, but there are those who can purely by their nature. Take for instance Galadriel, who appears to be able to telepathically communicate, or Gandalf, who is essentially an angel as described by Tolkien. These characters are born with these traits that we call magic. As these are truly parts of their nature, there is nothing wrong with that. Finally, we have the purely evil kind of magic, and that is represented by the ring. A type of magic in which spirits, especially evil ones, are used to make things happen. So what is it about this last magic that is so evil? Upon reflection, I have identified 3 core issues: source, possession, and grasping. First is the source. This sort of magic relies on evil spirits to do the work. The ring contains Sauron's being, so there is no debate there. The second issue is possession. As we see, the ring has its own will and is malicious. It promises power, but only in order to corrupt and then dominate the user's will. To me, that sounds like textbook possession. However, let's dive more into this trope. In stories, this trope often plays out in a similar pattern. The demon promises enough power to accomplish a certain task. However, as that proves insufficient, then promises more and more in exchange for something. All the while, the user is convinced he is in control, but he is mistaken. For if he is more powerful than the demon, then he would not have needed the demon's power in the first place. This deception from the start eventually either reveals itself, causing the user to despair, become wholly dependent upon the demon, or convinced they are one and the same. Either way, the user himself is powerless to free himself after fully embracing the power. It often requires the aid of another, such as Gandalf, of encouraging Bilbo. You can say this is why Frodo would never have been able to cast the ring himself, as admitted by Tolkien in his letters, but his purpose was just to get it there. You could also argue this is why Gandalf assigned Sam to accompany Frodo, especially as he himself experienced how hard it was to get Bilbo to give up the ring. Now for the third issue. This is perhaps the most cunning of all, and as I was rewatching The Fellowship of the Ring, I was struck by the words, but it is also so appropriate. It is a tool. I cannot understate how brilliant this is, for it encapsulates its own nature, but also how it corrupts the user so willingly. Humanity uses tools. That is in our nature, and there is nothing wrong with that. However, where things often go wrong is when we grasp for something, especially power, and that is when tragedy befalls. The ring is said to enhance the natural abilities of its user, like a shortcut, like steroids. When we read the temptations of the ring, it's not to become invisible, but to enhance their power and desires. It takes their strength, their wants, and their nature, and enhances them to the point of corruption, just as Sauron himself fell due to his strong desire for order. Now here is an interesting point. The thing that Tolkien calls the closest to magic in our world is something he calls the machine. This term comes up especially during World War II, in which he calls the War of the Machines. He even describes that it is only the machine that is triumphant in the war. I have not read enough to fully understand what he means, but he describes how people will serve the machine. He says people will use the machine in attempt to bulldoze the real world and coerce others' wills. Their desire for the machine is fueled by desire for power, to rebel against morality, and for making the user's will quickly effective. Again, he's describing tools, but these also describe the temptations of the ring. So I think it is fair to say the One Ring is the representation of evil magic. What makes this more interesting is that the more I think about this, I see parallels to how people discuss generative AI. Those who are against AI speak similarly in disdain as those who protested magic, while the other side we hear supporters speak as if it's just a tool to be used for good regardless of its source. There is actually more depth to this topic as a whole, with valid points on both sides and misunderstandings that I would hope to clarify so that we can make progress. In such, I will hopefully do a video on this topic in the future, so please subscribe to be notified when it appears. To wrap things up, let's go back to what people were protesting about magic. The problems that were often cited to me were spells, which by definition are calls of spirits and not your own natural power, and that people could learn magic. Essentially, it was to protest what looked like evil magic. If we examine the Lord of the Rings and also Tolkien's letters, I think it is safe to say that he would agree. The nature of evil magic is its source, the setup for possession, and how it corrupts people, causing them to grasp. Any of these three alone is evil, and the ring is a perfect representation. While we should not confuse evil magic for the other definitions, I do think it is also important to be able to distinguish them and not blur the lines. If you like these kind of essays, then please do me a favor and like, comment, and share. That would really help me keep up my motivation to keep going. Thank you, and I hope to see you next time.